Hello, hey, hi, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. I know that it has been a hot minute. We're going to be starting on a new project, and we're going to be playing with a new product that I feel has been overlooked by the art community, and I don't understand why. We're going to be reviewing the Montmartre acrylic inks. I got this 12-pack set that comes with a milliliter bottle of vibrant, high-quality acrylic inks that are reported to be perfect for tons of projects, like airbrushing, creating ink pours, or even detailed pen and ink drawings. Each bottle uses the moon symbols on the bottle to indicate the opaque and transparency of each color, along with the 3-star rating for the light fastness. Now that we took a closer look at the main art product that we're going to be using, let's talk about the art material that we're going to be using on. So, instead, I decided to add a little bit of a twist to this project and use a paper that is only comparable to Bristol boards. Why, you ask? Well, years ago, I used to work at a medical facility. We used these thick Bristol boards in between products that were being delivered before we inputted the products into the machines. Oftentimes, these got thrown out. Me, as a budding artist and poor, thought these would be perfect to draw on. Couldn't resist, and I started hoarding them. Little did I know, years later, I would have these still shoved in the back of my closet. I am hoping that this paper will be able to withstand this new art product, so that way I can add layers to it and finally start diminishing this box. Fingers crossed. Has been a crazy ride the last couple of months, which I'll give you a little bit of an update later on in the video as to what's been going on the back end. But I kind of want to talk about what I'm doing currently in the video. I started off with staining the paper with a mix of yellow ochre and burnt umber because I wanted to establish a warm undertone. I knew that in this drawing / painting, I was going to be using a large amount of blue, but I still wanted it to have this warmth to it. My aim was to start with a warm foundation to subtly influence the overall color scheme without overpowering it. The acrylic inks already start with a very transparent base, but I did end up watering it down just so I was able to layer it more evenly and used more of a higher level of ochre to add in the shadow works of the high and low points that I wanted to make sure to keep track of, that I was able to pull from my original sketch. This was really cool because it allowed me to build my shadow work the way that I actually saw it in my head, by adding little by little and touch point by touch point. Each area had its own little unique shadow points as well as highlights, so I wanted to make sure that I was able to track that from my original vision. I feel like I succeeded. Enough about that. Let's get to the fun part and start to paint. Like I had mentioned before, this is a product that I've never actually used before, so I wasn't sure how much water I was able to add to really dilute it, and this caused a little bit of a challenge at the beginning. I also didn't know how much water the Bristol board was actually able to take. In truth, I was pleasantly surprised. As long as I let the layers dry in between, I found that I was able to add in as many layers as possible. There was a little bit of an issue later on when it came to blending some colors, but it did work out in the end. The further along that I did end up going, though, it made for a better guesstimation on how much that I was actually able to add to the inks to make sure that I was able to get the consistency that I actually needed. Once I mastered that, then, oh, look at that. Come on, man. That's juicy, juicy. Look at that color, that saturation. You gotta love it. The along we go in this project, you're going to figure out that this project is all about layering. Layering people, that's what makes good art. In truth, that is actually what makes good art. There's a difference between a 5-minute sketch and a 20-minute sketch, and all of it has to do with how many layers that you're willing to put on to add in the additional details. At this point, as you already know, I've already stepped it up a notch with the saturation of the color. I didn't go all the way. If I would say I stepped up a notch, I maybe stepped up like 1.5 notches, just because I was paranoid and nervous because I didn't want to redo this and I didn't want to redraw it. So since it was my first time blending two colors and the fact that it is ink and very permanent, I was still worried to make heavy duty moves. But because, again, with the layering, it did make it a little bit easier for me. The further along I got in the apple, a little bit more color got added because I felt a little bit more comfortable with what transparency level the bottles were sitting at and how much water that I was actually able to add in. I used a lot of short strokes in this one, and the reason why is because the texture of the apple I wanted to capture as well. I used a reference photo just so I could get kind of the texture of the skin. So I found that there was almost like a grid mark that circled the apple, and I wanted to kind of copy that and bring that over to the painting. And I found that it added a level of realism to it. It really came across. It's something that I do need to practice within my art, is how to incorporate more textures. You can actually see that I started to brighten it up with a lot more yellow and remove that transparency factor and just kind of went a little bit bold. And of course, you gotta add the highlights. The benefits that I did find with the transparency with the acrylic inks was when I was coloring in a lot of the metalwork. The hookah piece that I attached to the white rabbit was a prime example of this. By keeping that transparent level with the color tones that I was choosing in the gold work, it allowed me to really build and saturate the areas that needed to be saturated while still being able to layer down more transparent colors to keep it all shaded in and level together. This was one of my favorite pieces of the sketch that I did. I don't know what it is. I think it's just because to me, it's a part almost like armor, but at the same time, it's got a little bit more of a twist, showing that the white rabbit isn't actually like real. It's not human. It's not, animal. It's something else entirely, which is, it's Alice in Wonderland. So you let your imagination do what it wants to do. The shadow work as well, I used more of a burnt umber because I wanted to keep that cool tone when it comes to like shadow work, but still keep it on the warm side with the brown. So that burnt umber color really came in handy. Eventually I started kind of getting annoyed because I had to make so many alterations to that burnt umber depending on what area of the painting that I was doing, that I ended up mixing up my own brown tones using the primary colors and mixing them to the specifications that I needed for whatever area that I wanted, instead of using it straight from the bottle, because it did come as its own color within the 12-pack kit. I was still a little too cautious with the diluting of the ink by the time that I hit the caterpillar, but don't worry, I'm going to go back over it. It's going to be added some more layers and more layers and more layers. I'm not going to make you watch all the layers that I did end up putting on, but I am going to give you a small example of a speed lapse of the caterpillar. This dude is my favorite part of the entire thing. His hands floating in the air. This one was the most fun. I actually didn't go with the original design that I did and ended up altering him right on to the Bristol board before I started painting him. There's just something about his hands floating in the air and then the creepy mask that it just ties everything together in this section. It's just like, if it gives you a moment of pause to be like, what is going on? And I don't know, I just love that. You can really see the difference between the vibrancy and the saturation of the solid color vs the diluted ink. It really pops. One thing I noticed is with the caterpillar is the white ink isn't quite as opaque as I'd like. So I actually did end up mixing in some acrylic paint with the acrylic ink, just so that way it could like kind of almost like stretch, I guess you could say, the acrylic ink so that way it was able to cover more. Because of this, there was a little bit of a resistance with the blue ink when I layered down that saturated color, which was cool because it created this really awesome effect where it like kept the highlighted points that I had added in, but still adding just a wee bit of a blue tone to it, which was cool. Happy accident. Obviously, throughout this entire thing, I didn't post every single step that I took with this drawing and this painting. I am, however, planning on doing another video, but it's going to be like literally just a time-lapse video where it's just sped up. If you do want to see from start to finish of all of the clips that I do have of this painting, you'll be able to watch that. I'll release it in a couple of days with the music added on, and you don't have to hear me ramble. You can just kind of chill, relax, and paint along with me. In the meantime, you can't have Wonderland without the Mad Hatter. He can't make an appearance, so we get his hat. This is where I start to get a little bit mole with mixing of the color because of the opaque of the white paint added to the ink. This gave me a little bit more control and a little bit more ease because whatever I messed up on, I have the ability to erase now. So it's a learning curve, and still to this point, regardless of how many layers that I put down, the Bristol board is holding. This makes me so excited. I'm going to tackle down this box so fast now that I have an idea of how many layers that I can put on and what I can actually do with it. This is going to give me so many more canvases that I don't have to buy, which is exciting. I'm very new to the YouTube world, so you don't know very much about me, but fun fact, I am actually a twin. So there are two of me, which is fantastic. With that being said, I would be remiss if I did not add Tweedledee and Tweedledum into this somewhere onto the canvas. This is another piece that I made an alteration from the original sketch that I ended up drawing right onto the board at the last minute. I love how this turned out. It adds that, again, that elemental of creepy twist to it that it just hits right. I use the same gold technique as I used before, but with much more concentrated values and highlighting of the dark tones, because when I do add in the highlights, it's got to pop. Before we do a little bit more of a deep dive into Tweedledee and Tweedledum, I do want to address why I've been missing so much from YouTube. Obviously, there are changes that are going to be happening, but I wanted to tell you a little bit of an update as to what's been going on in my life and what I hope to achieve. Cue backstory. For years, I worked at a corporate telecommunication job. I excelled at my job. I was climbing the ladder quicker than I thought was possible for me, and I was making a good income. Every day I went to work, slowly began to feel like something was missing. I just wasn't feeling fulfilled. There was a nagging feeling that I could be doing something different, something more, and it was starting to eat away at me slowly. Even though I kept climbing the ladder, I just felt stuck. Didn't know the ladder do or where to go. Then, something happened. The logical side, and I would be fine and that I should go back into the corporate world. The security, stability, it was tempting. Come on, you know it makes sense. Don't throw it away on a simple dream. The pay is steady, the benefits are amazing. You know you can adapt to a job easily within a week. Don't throw away for a simple dream. It's safer to go back in, find another position. Don't listen to her. This is your chance. Imagine the freedom, the creativity, instead of doing something that you hate. Caught between a battle between my head and my heart. The security of the corporate world or the unknown and the excitement of following my passion. But what if I fail? What if I don't make it as an artist? At least you know you tried. When are you ever going to get a chance like this? You know what? Let's do it. I don't think there is ever a right time to make a life change as grand as this, but I feel like Tweedledee and Tweedledum are actually quite fitting for what has been going on. This is a massive move in my life, but I feel like if I don't take this opportunity, then I will continuously be sitting with the what if. I could go one way or I could go the other. One is obviously safer, but this is what I love. And if I can't take a gamble on myself, then who else am I going to take a gamble on? I want to share art with the world. I want to talk about art. I want to learn the correct terminology. There's so much that this realm can offer. At least if I succeed, then, I create my own community. And if I don't, well, then at least I can say that I did it and I tried. Since getting that notice, I've literally just been working on getting my ducks in a row and, taking a little bit of me time just to kind of recharge, because the corporate life can really suck the energy out of you. Anywho, back to the art conversations. Ugh, this guy. I don't want to say that I hate this guy, because I don't. He adds an extra element to the piece. But to say that I enjoyed painting him, I can't say that. I avoided him, and I don't know. I was just not having fun painting him. I just wanted to get him done and over with. I'm happy I did it. I'm happy that he's in there. Maybe it's pink. I'm not a pink person. Maybe it's the feathers. Feathers take forever. You gotta layer it properly. I never know where to put it. Yeah. But he did it. I did it. He's in there. He's pretty. He adds that element. Yeah. I don't really have much to say about the flamingo. Ooh, the white highlights, though, they did add that extra zhuzh to it, I do believe. Make it pop. This part was the most intimidating, the light bulbs. I had no idea how to approach them. I spent majority of the time at the end of each painting session just staring at the light bulbs and trying to figure out where I needed to put the highlights on the already colored and exposed pieces, how I was going to do this transition while keeping the still warm tone of the background in. All in all, I did manage to do it. If I look back on it now, I'm glad that it's taped, because I just tackled it. I didn't know where I was going with it. But basically, I was using more of the acrylic paint and just, watering it down and blending it out till I got each of the transition areas that I wanted to into the piece. And then use the same technique that I used on the caterpillar to add in that extra layer of color. I made sure to keep the highest concentrated white closest to the light bulb to show, the luminosity of the light, but I still wanted to add that extra cool element to the actual glass area to show that. So using a very diluted form to keep that saturation level down, I just kept adding layers onto each of the pieces until I was satisfied. A tricky part to this also was the double light bulbs, because each one required an extra layer of where the overlapping was to show the difference between the two. Now, for the lightning bugs inside, I just used a solid white, and then same technique that I used on the outside of the light bulb, I blended it out to give it more of a faded area, and then just kept a more concentrated source from the inner part to show, the greater part of the light. Now, if you look at any kind of glass, you'll tend to know that there are always the darker points to the glass that shows like the reflection of the items around it, as well as like strong highlighted points. So I looked up a couple of glass pieces, as well as, went downstairs and looked at a couple of the glasses that were in my cupboard. And I just kind of imitated that as best I could. I'm not looking for it to be exact, because luckily, one of the reasons why I don't draw realism is, I like that looseness that you can get with like a cartoony figure. So although I do have realism kind of tendencies, I guess, I still stay with a more looser form. And I like that. That's kind of just my style. I don't want real. If I wanted real, I'd go about my everyday life. I want fantasy. I want daydreams. I want imagination. Ooh, this is my favorite part. I was counting down the time. The rows on the inside, this tied together, that shield hookah piece, weird thing in the middle. Oh, the satisfaction when I was doing this. I can't even. The dopamine that I got, the rush. It's complete. The white rabbit was actually really fun too, because regardless of like where I was in the middle of the painting, with the white rabbit as it stood, I knew that I had to tackle him last because he was the biggest piece and the most detailed. The piece never felt finished to me until I tackled the white rabbit. There were some points in the white rabbit, because I had ended up putting down the transition colors at the beginning, that I did end up having to go back over just to add that extra layer of saturation, and then use that white to really add in that contrast. Now, again, with the light bulbs, I wanted to make sure that there were really strong highlight points to this, to the rabbit. So I did make sure to do almost like a gradient and fade out from the highest highlight point back to like, the further away from the light source that it was. But of course, we want to keep the element of, the rabbit is not brown, he is a white rabbit. So I wanted to add that in. All in all, this piece was so much fun to paint and so much fun to do. I'm looking forward, now that I found this new material, I'm looking forward to what I can do with it in the future. I definitely will be tackling that Bristol board box. For the price that I paid for these, and the lessons that I learned, I still don't understand why I wasn't able to find anything major with the acrylic inks. I was able to achieve so much with these, that I'm surprised I don't see more artists use them on YouTube. When I was looking it up on Pinterest, all I could find were like, acrylic ink pours and acrylic ink this, but like this is such a versatile product. I don't get it. Oh, and don't forget, I will be posting the longer version if you do want to see the full video from start to finish, obviously sped up because this took hours to do. Overall, I'm thrilled with the results. I hope you guys like it too. They were super fun. They're super affordable. They're really adaptable. I want to try airbrushing them. Sorry, off topic. But I wanted to take this opportunity. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and, follow me if you want to come along on the adventures and see what's up and what's next on the major projects now that we got a little bit of time on our hands. Let me know what you think of this product too, because have you used it? Has anybody used this product? I don't understand. But other than that, yeah, go touch paint. Okay, bye.